Hi guys, my name is Karthik and I am from EasyAutomation.com and welcome to another video for getting started with shell scripting video series. And in this video, we are going to talk about working with conditions in Bash. Conditions and tests in Bash are so important that without them, you may not do anything as simple as possible. Starting this video is a place where we are going to start working with some of the advanced concept in Bash slowly. So conditions are, once again, like any other programming language. If you're familiar with C#, Java, Python, or any other programming language, you know there is something called as if conditions. So if conditions are mainly used to check if the condition satisfies, then perform this operation and then close with a braces or something like that. That's how many programming language does. But here in the Bash scripting, all we have to do is there is an if keyword, once again, pretty much like any other programming language, and we can use a square bracket or a double parenthesis, and you can see that there is a then keyword, and then we perform the then operation here. And then to close the if, we have to use the reverse of if, which is the fi or phi. So that's how the if condition is written. So this is like one liner, and if you want to split this into a multiple line, then we do something like this. So this is how the actual if condition looks like in the conditions in our Bash. And we can do the exact same thing with the if else condition as well. And over here, you can see that we have a if condition, there is then operation, and there is a else if, and there is another condition, there is a then, and then you do the echo, and then you do a phi to close the if condition, because there is no braces there like any other programming language does. So here we start the if, and then we close with fi. So that's how the things will happen in here in the if else condition. And not only that, you might have seen that there are some square brackets here. But well, as that said, as you can see, there is a square bracket in the if condition, but in other shell scripting, you might have seen like double square brackets like that. Well, there are two ways of defining a square bracket. One is the single square bracket and another one is the double square brackets. Well, what is the single square bracket? Well, this is a shorthand of the test command itself, which is available in the Bash, and the double square bracket is the extended version of the square bracket and has a few noticeable features during the regular expression matching, and also you don't really have to use like a dollar symbol while you try using the variable like that. I mean, there are a few better ways of using this double square bracket, and we'll be using double square bracket a lot because that is quite interesting comparatively than this single test command shorthand square bracket. Well, as I said, we'll also be doing some of the control operators, something like these, where you can combine two or more commands together to perform certain actions based on the outcome of the other command. And this is what is the control operators basically. One is the ampersand symbol, like double ampersand symbol, and there is a double or symbol or the double pipe symbol that we have used before. And this is the control operators that we will be using in this particular video, and I will show you how it actually looks like. Now we have to see what are the different kinds of condition operation that we can actually do within our shell scripting. And as you can see over here, there are double square brackets, and there is an -z with a string value that if you pass, then it checks for the empty string value, and then if there is an -n of the string value, then you say it's a non-empty string, and if the string is equal to or double is equal to a string, then it is actually matching if the strings are equal, and the bang is equal to is nothing but the not equal to string, and then there is a -equal or -eq is for equal, -ne for not equal, -lt for less than, greater than, and greater than or equal to, something like that. So this is the different condition operation that we can do. So as you can see, we don't really have an if keyword here, rather there is two square bracket. Well, you can replace the if condition itself with just these two square brackets over here to check if this particular condition matches there or not. But the only thing is that you can't really do an else kind of it, and that's the reason why you actually need an if condition, and that's where if condition shines. So basically this is like a shorthand of if without the else statement. Well, as that said, you may ask like, what will happen if this particular condition fails? How do I actually know that this condition actually fails, and how do I know that this condition actually passes? Where is the actual place that we tell that what is the outcome of this particular condition? Well, if you have got the question, then you are on the right track, we now need to understand what is called as the exit status. Every command results in an exit code whenever it terminates. And this exit code is used by whatever application started it to evaluate whether everything went okay or not. So here, every time you perform any operation here, let's say -z of string, and if it is a empty string, then it is going to return you what is called as a 0, which denotes okay, and any number other than 0 is not okay. And so that is how we actually define the exit status. So every condition that you see over here is going to work based upon if it is okay or not okay based on the exit status it actually returns, or exit code it actually returns. And also, if we write our own custom program, like custom script, we can set or define our own exit codes, which can then be used by other scripting. Well, while we get into the coding or the scripting of our own bash script, we'll actually talk about the bash status code, but for now we don't really have to worry about it. Let's just stick with what we have really in here. Just to understand exit status code, 0 denotes okay, and any number other than 0 denotes not okay. So that's about the exit status. And there are a couple of other conditions that we have to talk about, like file conditions, or how they can actually simplify our actual condition testing. We will talk about that later point of time in our next video, but for now let's focus on whatever that we have discussed so far in our conditions. So now we are going to talk about the conditions here. So first of all, let's try to do an echo of our shell over here. As you can see, if you remember in our earlier videos, we talked about how we can export of our variable in the bash rc, and we actually set those values in the bash rc file, and we already know that the $shell variable actually has got the ZSH there, right? And now I want to verify if the $shell value that we have has got the shell value or not. We'll first start with the if condition, and then we'll get to the $, something like that. But before we even do that, let's first of all understand the exit code so that you'll understand things more clear. So if I do an ls-l and if I hit enter, you see that it gets you all the outputs. Well, what is the actual exit code of this particular response that is coming from the ls-l? In order to check that, you can do using an echo of $ and question mark. And if you do that, you will see that it is going to give you a status code of 0 there. And let's say if I wanted to do an ls/etc/no directory, which doesn't even exist, and if I hit enter, you will see that there is going to be an error message anyways. But now if I do an echo of $ question mark, you will see that it is going to give you an exit code of 2. Which means the command which has executed has got something wrong. And that's the reason why you get a number other than 0. So if you get any number other than 0, which means it is not quite right. And this is exactly what is going to help us to perform a lot of different operation in order to make our code work better. Well, now we'll get into the if condition itself. In order to work with the if condition, all I'm going to do is this time I'm going to check if the shell is not an empty string. So in order to do that, I'm just going to do -n and then $shell. I'm going to close this, and I'm going to say, then if it is not empty, then I'm going to say the shell value is, and you'll notice that I'm using a double quotes there, and I'm not really printing with any value there. So I have to use what is called as an echo command. We'll talk about the print in our next snippet, but for now I'm just going to use the echo that we have been using all these days. And then I'm going to use a $sign of shell, and I'm going to close it with the double quotes. So you'll notice that every time I try to do an echo command with a text and then a variable, I use a double quotes here because it is going to expand the shell value, and at the same time, if there is going to be any spaces in between of the shell variable, it is also going to be expanded without any problem. Well, as it said, I'm just going to say phi to actually close the if condition. And now if I hit enter, you'll notice that it is going to tell you that the shell value is zesh. Awesome. So which means the if condition is actually working. But how do I make the shell variable as empty? Well, in order to do that, because this is actually set in our env variable, if you remember, we actually saw that the shell value is ZSH. What we can do is we can actually unset this environment variable using a keyword called as unset, and then I'm gonna say the shell and hit enter over here. So now if I do an env and if I see what is really happening there, you will notice that within this particular env, I don't see the shell command itself. Well, as I said, if I try to do an echo of $shell and if I hit enter, you'll notice that there is no value at all, which means the shell variable value has been reset or it is completely wiped out. And now if I do our if condition with -n of shell, and you will see that the shell value is nothing, right? And now you may notice that the shell value is still kind of coming up over here, right? The reason why is because the shell value is still printing some spaces there. So it's not like an completely empty there, but it is still gonna mask the particular value for you with some string with like a space is still there. And now to eradicate that particular problem, all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna change this condition a bit. I'm gonna show you the second condition that I wanted to show you this time, which is equal to exclamation mark is equal to, so not equal to, an empty space, something like this. And now if I try to hit enter, you'll actually get an exception here. And the exception, it actually tells you that you cannot use a single square bracket to perform the unary operator that you are trying to perform in over here. And I'm going to fix this real quick and I will explain you what's really happening behind the scene. So let me use the 2 square brackets here, and if I hit enter, you will notice that it is not going to basically go to the particular then statement, because now it knows that this value is actually not equal to an empty value. And if I try doing an empty there, you will notice that that actually prints a particular value. So basically this $shell is an empty value, and that is the reason why it is actually going to print go into the particular then condition there. And if it is not equal to empty, then it is not going to basically print. So basically this is how the condition is actually working. But now the next question comes is, what is this double square bracket and what is this single square bracket? If I just try to do a man of test, and let me do an unminimize because it's been quite a while that we have not really did that, and I'm gonna do a sudo unminimize. And now you can see that the whole mandb is installed. And now if I try to do a man of test, you will notice that I'm getting the manual over here. And you can see that the manual, it says that the test to check the file type and compare a value. And this can be done using the test expression or test, or using a single square bracket or single square bracket ending, and then the option there. So the single square bracket is basically an alias of this test command itself. So this is how things are going to work. And now if you try to do a man of square bracket, you'll still end up with the test itself because they both are same. So this is how the square bracket basically works over here. Well, as I said, now that you might have seen that while I tried doing this particular command, I used the double square braces there. The reason why is because the double square braces is an extension of the single square bracket or the test command itself, and has got a lot more versatile functionality. For example, if I try doing something like this, you'll notice that it is an empty value. The shell is an empty value, and that's the reason why this value has been printing over here. But instead of passing a $shell, I can remove this dollar from here, and if I try hitting enter, you will notice that the output behavior is entirely different. So what has gone wrong over here? So let's say if I try doing something like this, and with the spaces there, it is still going to print the particular value. So let's see what is the value of our shell itself. So now if I try doing an echo of shell over here, you will see that the value is really empty. So it is an empty value over there. So which means now if I try doing an shell which is equal to an empty value, which I can put like double quotes there, and if I hit enter, you'll notice that it is going to tell you that this is basically a space value. So you can use a shell of -equal, and then you can use a double code there to perform those operations. So this is entirely possible if you can do using a double square braces. So that is the reason why double square braces is even more flexible than a single square braces or the test condition, because it has a lot of other versatile option. And other option that we can actually use, not only the hyphen equal without the dollar symbol there, is that you can also use regular expressions, and there is something called as a is equal to of the tilde symbol. You can pass the regular expression match to perform those operations. That is other better way of doing it with the double square braces there. And we can also write the if else statement right here. But even before I do that, let's see what is the outcome of this particular command that we have just executed. So I can use a dollar question mark here to see it is going to give us a 0 value, which means it is giving us the correct exit status of 0 there, and it has satisfied the particular condition. But now let's say if I say the shell value is equal to 1, and if I hit enter, you'll notice that there is not going to be any response there. But if I try doing an echo of dollar question mark, you'll notice that still the exit value is coming up as 0. So why is that really happening? Well, because within our if condition we have not really specified what exit condition to be thrown, we always get the value of 0 there. So the better way of doing it right now is to write an else if condition. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an else if of another condition here, where I'm going to say if shell is equal to, let's say here, if the shell is equal to empty, then you're gonna say the shell value is empty. And in the else if, I can say that the shell, if the shell value is not equal to empty, then you're gonna do this for me. Then echo the shell value is, and then I'm gonna print the particular value there. So I'm gonna say $shell, something like this, and I can say free. That is gonna close the particular condition for me. And now I'm gonna hit enter, and you can see that the shell value is empty is gonna come up. So now to set the exit code itself, all I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna go back to our existing code that we have written over here. And right now I'm going to set our own custom exit code. And the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to use a dollar sign there, and then open a parentheses, and I'm going to say exit. And because this value is going to be empty, so if it is going to be an empty value, then I'm going to say that, all right, so this is going to be an unexpected behavior. So I'm going to say this is going to be 2, and there is a close parenthesis, so you see that there is a space between the value and the parenthesis. That is very important, because if you don't do that, then shell is going to intercept in a very different way. And then I'm going to do the exact same thing for the value which is going to work, which is going to be exit of 0, which means it is the one which I'm looking for really. So I'm going to say close parenthesis, and if I hit enter this time, you'll notice that the value is empty, because we know that the shell value is empty. And now if we try to see the exit code, you'll see that it is going to print us the exit of 2. So basically, if I try doing an if there is a failure operation, then we get an exit code of 2. And if there is going to be a working shell value, then there is going to be an exit code of 1. So let me clear the screen, and let's get back to our other conditions that we can really use other than the one that we have been discussing, this one. Now let's say if I want to set a user as, let's say, Karthik here, and now if I try to do an echo of user, you will see that we have a Karthik there, right? So we can do a lot of other conditional test here. For example, we can see if that particular value is an empty string or not. So I can just check if the user is an empty string or not. And then if I try to do an echo of dollar question mark, and you will see that the value is not an empty string, and that's the reason why it is actually giving you a 1 there. And if it is an empty string, then it is going to give you a 0 there. And the way we can do it is I'm going to give an in, and now if I try doing an echo, you will see that it will get a 0 there, right? And similarly, we can also verify the value is matching or not. So I can just do a user, and then if it is not equal to, I'm going to give in capital letter though. So let's say Karthik. If I hit enter and then if I try to do an exit code, you'll see that it is actually not equal because it is in capital letter, right? So those things are going to work pretty much like how you do with other programming language. Let's go with the numbers as well. So let's say if I want to see if 20 is greater than 10, and if I hit enter and if I try to do an echo, you'll see that it is greater. That's the reason why it is working fine. So it's 0. But if we want to see if the 20 is greater than 60, then if you try to do an echo, then you know the number is going to be not 0, but it is going to be 1. So that is how things are going to be working there. And similarly, other things you can just try it out by yourself, but there are so many other conditions that you can use. So this is how the exit code as well as the conditions, test conditions, and the if condition actually work, and if else condition works. But in our next video, we'll also discuss some of the other conditions like file conditions in much greater detail.